7 o'clock, and so I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David,
Present.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Here.
Mr. John Welch,
Present.
and you have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. This evening, we have Mr. Mark Paulson to lead us in prayer.
Very much. Father, we thank you so much for this spring day. Father, we're thankful for spring and just the new life it brings, the green of the trees, blooming of the flowers, and just reminds us of the life that you provide. And we're just thankful for that. Father, our hearts and minds go out towards those in our neighboring community. For those in Andover who were affected by the tornado last week, we just pray that you would continue to provide for them. Thankful for just the way that you protected life in that. And Father, as those who are rebuilding, Father, go through that process, Father, may we be the neighbors in the community next to them that will provide those helping hands. Father, thankful for the mayor, for the council members, for the city administrator, for the staff, Father, for the time that they give in making this community a better place. Father, we just pray that you would just bless them as they, in the discussions that are had. Father, that you would just give them discernment and wisdom on decisions that are made. Father, may they be made for the benefit of those who call Bel Aire home. And Father, we thank you for all that you provide. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance to the American flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight I have two proclamations to read. The first one is Older Americans Month, May 2022. So to the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas Bel Aire is the community that includes citizens aged 60 and older, and whereas the older adults in Bel Aire are among the most treasured resources, united by historical experiences, strengthened by diversity, and interpreting events through varied perspectives and backgrounds to bring wisdom and insight to our community. And whereas increasing numbers of adults are reaching retirement age and remain strong and active for longer than ever before. And whereas the older adults in Bel Aire deserve recognition for their contributions they have made and will continue to make to the culture, economy, and character of our community and our nation. And whereas our community can provide that recognition and respect by improving the quality of life for older Americans by increasing their opportunities to remain active and engaged in community life, provide individualized services and support systems to maintain the dignity, independence, and self-determination of older Americans as they age, and combating ageism attitudes by honoring their past, present, and future contributions. Therefore, I, Jim Benage, Mayor, do hereby proclaim May 2022 to be Older Americans Month. I urge every citizen to take time this month to honor our older adults and professionals, family members, and volunteers who care for them. Our recognition and involvement of older Americans can enrich our entire community and quality of life. The second proclamation is Public Service Recognition Week of May 1st through the 7th, so we're in the middle of that week. To the citizens of Bel Aire, Kansas, greetings. Whereas Americans are served every day by public servants in the federal, state, county, and city levels, these unsung heroes do the work that keeps our nation working. Whereas public employees take not only jobs, but oaths. Whereas many public servants, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, Border Patrol officers, embassy employees, healthcare professionals, and others risk their lives each day in service to the people of the United States and around the world. Whereas public servants, include teachers, inspectors, law enforcement, bus drivers, managers, engineers, public works, recreation employees, firefighters, accountants, customer service representatives, laborers, computer technicians, social workers, and countless other occupations. Day in and day out, they provide the diverse service services demanded by the American people of their government with the efficiency and integrity. And whereas without these public servants, every level continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials. Therefore, I, Mayor Jim Benage of the City of Bel Aire, do hereby announce and proclaim to all citizens and set seal hereto that May 1 through 7, 2022 is Public Service Recognition Week. All citizens are encouraged to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, federal, state, county, and city. Move on to determine agenda additions. Do we have any agenda additions? Hearing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. This week's consent agenda contains the minutes of the April 19th City Council meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item 8, discussion and approval of the appropriation ordinance. This period includes 2 payroll batches and purchase of a rotary mower from Schmidt and Sons in the amount of $17,400. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
I make the motion to approve the appropriations ordinance 22-08.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. We have no city requested appearances for this evening, so we'll move on to citizens' concerns. Do we have any citizens here that would like to speak to the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports. Mr. David, would you like to make a report?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Well, on Saturday, I was able to attend the Arbor Day celebration that was put on by the city's tree board. That was a great celebration. We got to see the new tree that had been planted over by the Central Park pool, as well as got a mulching demonstration by our city arborist. And so big thanks to the tree board for hosting that event and the staff for making the time to attend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Welch.
Last Saturday, I went and got rid of my electronic recycling and things to be shredded. And I'd like to thank the Lions for putting on that event.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So I'll move on to mayor's report. So on April 28th, I attended the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority meeting. A lot happened at that meeting. So we heard from financial auditors, BT and Company. They reported a significant journal entry error that was corrected. This had to do with not reporting depreciation on assets that were corrected from last year. So kind of a step learning process, but last year there was a significant misstatement for the lack of recognition of certain assets. So those are now recognized, but depreciation against those assets had not been reported for this year. That was corrected, and going forward, that oversight should not occur. So we also heard from Jennifer Hill, who outlined for the CCA board the investigation Bel Aire is doing into the bond documents and the appropriate adjustments, true-ups that should be made as a result of the requirements of the bond documents. This is an effort to assure all parties are being treated fairly. And we anticipate a report of the results of that investigation by June or July meeting of the CCUA. We heard from utility manager Jacob Coy about a recurring situation of exceeding the daily limit of 4,200 pounds per day of solids. In an effort to learn the source of this problem, we asked Jacob to bifurcate the test and send the same sample to 2 different labs to see if we're getting significantly different results. This will help us understand whether exceeding the limit is a lab issue. Jacob is also going to start visiting several manufacturing businesses in Park City to see if they are doing something different to cause the significant and sudden increase in solids. This is an ongoing investigation until we learn why we are getting so much solids in the sewage. Something changed that causes us to have a 33% increase in solids. That doesn't happen from normal increase in populations. And we also approved the rehab of CCA number 1 well which is part of our preventative maintenance program. We also approved a repair of a pump for Park City Well Number 1 that was discovered to need to be rebuilt as a result of that well's preventative maintenance. Lastly, we approved the repair of the decanter on SRB 3. That this was maintenance that had been long delayed and causing a significant hazard for the crew at CCUA when they have to get into a boat and do weld repairs. So then on April 28th through 30th, I attended the Mayor's Conference in Manhattan, Kansas. This was combined with the League of Kansas Municipalities Governing Body Institute. It was a good conference, and they invited a good speaker, Matt Larman, who presented on ideas on how to move from vertical communication with citizens to that we are forced to do in formal meetings to a more horizontal communication where citizens are on the same level as governing body. The good thing is that Bel Aire has taken some small steps towards the horizontal communication, but much more is needed. Mr. Lehrman will be sending out his PowerPoint slides, and I will share those with council members and Mr. Lasher for distribution as he sees fit. I was invited to participate in a panel discussion with the mayor with Mayor Grant Spieth of Columbus, Kansas. The topic was what I wish I would have known. We were asked questions about things that were unexpected when we assumed the position of mayor and how we dealt with several issues that come up from time to time. There's a couple of questions from other mayors in the attendance. It was a good interaction with the mayors. I also attended a couple of breakout sessions on economic development and code enforcement. The president and CEO of Manhattan Chamber of Commerce was the presenter on the economic development topic. He talked about how Manhattan Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in bringing Scorpion Biological Services and 500 jobs and a $650 million investment to Manhattan. We have heard opinions expressed that chambers of commerce do not bring in new businesses. It appears that has been proven wrong, but we do need an advocate for economic development. So in that light, I'm moving to reduce my auditing practice, and that's been in process for about a year. After this month, my time doing audits will significantly reduce, and I will then take up a couple of projects, one being working to develop an economic development plan for Bel Aire through the Chamber of Commerce with participation of businesses within Bel Aire. Later this month, we will be voting on, or this meeting, not this month, in this meeting, we will be voting on Emily Hamburg to fill Dr. Joe Schroeder's council seat. If we approve Ms. Hamburg on the council, over the next several days, I will contact the other 6 candidates to learn their interest in filling Diane Wynn's vacant seat. I will communicate the results of that inquiry with all council members. To date, we have not received any additional applicants for Ms. Wynn's seat. Of course, we do not receive applicants we could receive applicants anytime before May 19th deadline, and I will share those with current council members. We still have 2 open positions on the tree board. I did forward one application to Gary Northwell, who's the chairman of the tree board. So we'll need at least one more person to apply for this opportunity to serve the city in this capacity. We also know of the devastation of Andover experienced in the tornado last Friday. It was fortunate that there were no deaths. Still, the damage was significant. Bel Aire offered to assist Andover in whatever capacity they needed. This was done through our police chief, our city manager, and myself. It appears to date Andover is not determined to take us up on those offers, but we are at the ready should they identify a need where we can help. Many of us remember the tornado that went through Andover in 1991. The latest one appears to have had a track less than half a mile off the track of the 1991 tornado. The 1991 tornado did much damage and took 17 lives. But let's keep the people of Andover in our prayers as they recover from this latest tragedy. The blood supply shortage still remains critical across the country. There is an opportunity to donate blood at the Catholic Care Center here in Bel Aire 2 days from now on Thursday, May 5th. Yes, that's Cinco de Mayo. If you are able to donate blood, call Jessica Martinez. Her number is 744-4110 to make an appointment. The Sedgwick County Association of Cities meets on May 14th at May City Hall. I do encourage all council members to attend this. It starts at 8:30 a.m. and lasts until 10:30 or so. It's a good opportunity to network with other mayors and council members and county commissioners. As a result of efforts of the K254 Corridor Development Association, KDOT sponsored a safety study of K254. From that study, several small improvements are being made. A management plan is also being developed to provide an overall long-term vision for this highway. That will be completed in about a year. One of the items that came from the safety study was the recommendation for right turn lanes at some intersections. So starting on Monday, May 9th, Rock Road will be closed northbound from 53rd for about 6 weeks while KDOT installs right turn lanes on K254 at Rock Road. This will be a nice improvement. Also on Monday, May 9th, Bel Aire will install new four-way stop signs at Rock Road and 53rd. This was from the recommendation of an engineering study funded by KDOT. The stop signs will have lighted periphery that draw attention to the fact that you must stop at Rock Road and 53rd, no matter which direction you're going. Tomorrow, May 4th at 11:30 a.m., Clinic in a Can is having an open house. This is sponsored by the Bel Aire Chamber of Commerce. Excuse me. On Thursday, May 17th, from 5 to 7 p.m., just before our next city council meeting, Bel Aire Recovery Center will have an open house. This is an opportunity to take a tour, meet the leadership team, and network with others in the community. And I do intend to restart the Coffee with the Mayor meetings on June 18th. More to come on that. This was suspended with COVID. I think it's time we restart these discussions. So I'll now ask the city attorney for her report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as Mayor was saying, there may be a recommendation for an appointment tonight, and I just wanted the public to appreciate how that process could play out based on our vacancy policy. So I wanted to read the relevant section of our vacancy policy, assuming the mayor makes a recommendation tonight. Once the mayor has made a recommendation, council shall be permitted to confirm the mayor's first recommendation through a regular motion approved by a majority of the council members present. In the case of a tie, the mayor shall vote to break that tie. If the mayor declines to make a recommendation, this part is not relevant because we're not at the timeline to trigger that. So the key elements are that it can be done through regular motion, and if it does come down to a tie, the mayor is privileged to vote in that to break the tie. So that's for our public. Another piece that I wanted to follow up on is our website. We talked before about the website needed to go through some tweaks to make sure that we're ADA compliant, and we are ADA compliant. And that's a practical moving target. As we add forms and features to our website, those new forms and features would have to be addressed. And as ADA support mechanisms become better, we need to adapt and make sure that we're using the right colors and the right features that really work for ADA folks. And, due to our staffing limitations, we're going to make sure that we're checking that quarterly. But our goal and we are making reasonable efforts to be compliant as a city. We are also compliant with our YouTube and Facebook captioning requirements. Those two platforms fully support captioning, and our staff member at any request can go through and pretty easily clean up some of that captioning to make sure the words are nice and clear. And so we stand ready to do that as well. So I would say that we are pretty comfortable with where we are with our staffing capacity as far as ADA compliance in these areas. Lastly, just a short update. We're in the last 30-day stretch of backflow filing, and we are about 150 records that have been filed of what we anticipate will be 1,000. So we do kind of see, hopefully the next 3 weeks, we will get that 800. But we're like I mentioned before, we have the platform that makes it easy for contractors to go in and register with the city to be able to work on backflows, and our staff is just ready and processing these at this point. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilmember Welch noted, the Bel Aire Lions helped with Shredding and Recycling Day, and they shared that 113 vehicles came through and dropped things off. So that seems like a good turnout. Some updates on Public Works. They are finishing up their street sweeping. They did something new this year in that they put out on social media where they were going to be going for the next week. And the goal for that was so that citizens could have their cars moved, and had some cars moved, but some cars didn't get moved. So I just, again, reiterate for the public to follow us on social media, because we try to get out a lot of information that way. But they'll be street sweeping again later on this year. And so they'll be putting out where they're going to be in the weeks to come. So follow us, and you'll know when the street sweepers are going to come by your neighborhood. The cured in place sewer lines that rehab that council approved for Pearson's Addition has started. Going to take about 7 weeks. There will be some interruptions, not much, but there could be for the citizens in those areas. But Pearson's and City Hall or Public Works staff will be out notifying with door hangers and such that when they're in those areas that could affect homeowners. A couple positive things that I wanted to share. I'd like to congratulate Ted and his staff for receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association for the current fiscal year. He puts a lot of work into the budget, as you well know, and he creates a budget document, and he has to send that in to them to receive that award. Basically, the award represents a significant achievement by the city. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meet the highest principles of government budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the city has to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. And those guidelines include it being a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. So we've received this award for a number of years, and I appreciate the time and effort that him and his staff put into receiving that award. That's last I heard there were only 10 to 15 cities in Kansas that received that, so they should be proud of themselves. Last thing I wanted to mention, another positive, is U.S. News came out with the best high schools in Kansas for this year, and number 10 on the list was the Northeast Magnet, which is located in Bel Aire. So that's a positive feather in our cap. So, and that was all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Congratulations to Ted and his staff for receiving another award for best budget presentation. So we'll move on to 12A. This is the appointment of Paul Matzek to the Bel Aire Planning Commission. So Paul is temporarily appointed to the Planning Commission earlier this year. 2 seats on the Planning Commission are reserved for people like Paul who live within a narrow area bordering Bel Aire, but outside of any city limits. These seats have been difficult to fill in the past. So I asked Paul if he would like to be reappointed to his seat, and he said yes. So the term will be for 3 years, expiring June 1st, 2025. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'll make a motion to accept the mayor's reappointment of Paul Matzek to the Bel Aire Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 3-0. So also we have Mr. James Schmidt, who is on our planning commission and has been there for many years. So Mr. Smith has served as chairman of the Bel Aire Planning Commission for several of those years. He is a wealth of knowledge on Bel Aire's zoning requirements. I asked James if he would like to continue to serve on the commission, and he said yes. So the term will also be for 3 years, expiring June 1, 2025.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
I make the motion to accept the mayor's reappointment of James Schmidt to the Bel Aire Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion by Mr. David, a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. And then the next item is adopting a municipal water conservation plan. So KDHE requires any provider of potable water to maintain a water conservation plan should an emergency or drought hit their system. The plan must be adopted annually with CCUA, City of Wichita, and KDHE receiving a copy. Staff works with Utility Advisory Committee each year to review the plan and see if any changes need to be take place. So the UAC reviewed the plan and worked with Ann Stevens on the updated version in your packet. So I entertain a motion if there's any discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David,
make the motion to approve the 2022 Municipal Water Conservation Plan for the City of Bel Aire and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
a motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item D is ordinance changing the zoning classification of from agricultural to M1 planned unit development. So on April 14th, the Planning Commission reviewed the City of Bel Aire's land bank's request to rezone property located about a quarter mile east of Rock and 254 Highway. Public hearing was conducted during the meeting, allowing interested parties the opportunity to be heard. No interested parties other than the agent for the applicant showed to speak. Following public hearing, Planning Commission considered the evidence and discussed the zoning request and related to Bel Aire's zone code and the golden factors for zoning decisions. This property is close to the proposed K254 interchange at the edge of the urban area. So commissioners noted that if the rezone is granted, the PUD will need to be approved before it can be platted. Through the PUD process, Planning Commission can request a buffer between the residential area and this property. Having thoroughly reviewed the plan, the issue, Planning Commission voted by passing 5-0 motion to recommend rezoning of the property from AG to M1 agricultural to planned unit development industrial district. The ordinance to rezone the property now comes before council, and this is a roll call vote. So I'll ask the city clerk to call the roll when we would consider that, and I will be voting in this matter. Mr. Lasher, do you have a presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a unique situation. This is a big 160-acre parcel, and so I put this together for the Planning Commission. They appreciated that, and I wanted to share that with council as you make your decision tonight. Again, this is a large tract. So here's 254 Rock, so it's between Rock and Webb. The same developer also has this parcel under contract, which is the southwest corner of K250 and Webb. And so he's really will be looking at obviously bringing this in with the same zone. So he's going to have 160, 240 acres that he's going to be looking at developing. So typically when you do a zone and a plat, it's 80 acres. You see kind of the lots that they're looking at and where different zones are going to go or what the potential development is. And this is one that he doesn't know yet. So he's going with the highest zone. Because it's really easy to down zone. People can much easier understand going from an industrial to a commercial or residential multifamily. So that's where he's starting there. So the partners in this group are Steve Barrett. He has been with Wigand for more than 25 years, graduated from Wichita State, he's got a law degree. He's developed, brokered over almost $1 billion worth of real estate investment during his career, and he was recognized as 40 under 40 in 2013 by the Wichita Business Journal. His other partner is Herb Krumsick. Herb's been around even longer with Wigand, and he's also been a large investor and has a degree from WSU as well. His other partner is Ivan Crossland. Ivan's the owner of Crossland Construction. Started in 1977. It's one of the top construction firms in the nation. We'll talk about that. And then his last partner is Dave Murfin, who is CEO of Murfin Incorporated. They have a large stake in Murphy Tractor and Equipment, John Deere's largest, one of largest dealers. You may also recognize his name. He does things for the community right down here at, is it Webb? Or no, Hydraulic, where the animal shelter is. It's got his name on that. So he's a big contributor of communities. Here's some of the projects that Crossland has built. They've done a lot of the loft hotels. They do Aldi's. They did a Big Shots Golf and in a different state. Courtyards, Comfort, Delano Apartments. They've done schools, done a lot of different projects, not just in Kansas, but around the nation. This group has actually partnered with WSU, and they built the flats. They built the Law Enforcement Training Center, the Hyatt Place, and some of the buildings at Innovation Campus. So they've been active at WSU. They've done some things at Old Town Square. They bought NetApp building. So they're very well-known developers in the Wichita area. They also owned Webb Industrial Park, which had the Amazon go in there, Evergy, Fijiac. Then they've got some in the Sunflower Commerce Park. They bought all of the empty vacant lots there. They've got 2 spec buildings going on. They own Hoops, and there's 4 other lots that they own in Bel Aire, Sunflower Commerce Park. So their vision for up there, again, they've got a lot of area to cover. They're thinking that frontage road, there'll be a frontage road, as we've talked about, between Rock and Webb. They're thinking there could be potential for big box. Again, it's what the market is, and whether they could lure some big box up there. Warehouses, a hotel probably over at Webb, especially if there's an interchange that goes in there. And of course, with what all is happening at Hoops, with the things they bring in, some type of fuel station, again, over there. And then maybe some retail. So, and then some apartments. And so obviously you see by their development team and what they've done, this is all in their wheelhouse and things that they could easily produce. So really what the M1 zone, this is the specifics of that can go in there. The key thing to remember, and that's what the mayor read about the Planning Commission, is that the zone allows a lot of these things, but which is really what this is. But that zone also requires a PUD, planned unit development. So what will have to happen is there'll be a zone that allows these things, but then they will come when they're ready to plat this out and create a planned unit development, which will actually show the areas that they're proposing, what they're proposing. For example, fuel place, apartments, and all that. So you'll really get to see when they get to that point what they plan to do there. And as the mayor also read, that the Planning Commission will probably look at it, and you'll consider, is there proper screening between the different buildings and stuff. How does flows work, lighting, all those types of things. So really what you're approving and what they approved would be the zone change to allow what's within an M1, and then you have the control when that PUD is approved.
Good.
So are there any questions did I cover everything, or any questions that I can answer?
Was there any citizen concern to the south?
No, and whenever we do a zone change, we're required to notify property owners within, is it 200 feet? So we notified, and again, that's what makes it a little bit easier going to a M1 is at this point, this is all undeveloped. This is the school. These are apartments. So really everything around it is undeveloped. So they could be the first to go in there. We do know that, this is proposed to be residential housing, and so is this. So again, that's where when we look at what they're proposing here, should there be some screening down here from residential, that would be something that the planning commission might want to consider.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith.
With this M1 type of zoning, if the developer would want to put in a big box store or commercial, I think M stands for manufacturing. I think is what M stands for there. So I'm wondering if they want to do commercial there, are we going to see another zone change request to zone it to commercial to permit the commercial businesses there, or does the M1 with PUD allow for commercial as well?
Exactly. The
Okay.
M1 with PUD allows a broader range.
Okay. But there's nothing that can be built here without a PUD at this point.
Correct. Yeah, you would see you'd be down to like roadway, like you would see what the plan, like you'd have a pretty good site plan of what would go where and what would be allowed specifically written out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I move to accept an ordinance changing the zoning classification from agriculture to M1 planned unit development industrial district on certain property located within the corporate city limits of Bel Aire, Kansas, 1/4 mile east of Rock Road and K254 highway, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. David. And this is a roll call vote, so I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Jim Benage,
Aye.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Aye.
and Mr. John Welch.
Aye.
And the motion passes 4-0, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is another zoning change, classification from C1 commercial to R5B, I'm sorry, 0 lot line residential. So the planning commission conducted a public hearing for this rezoning request at their April 14th meeting as well. So interested parties were given the opportunity to be heard in public hearing. The area resident attended and asked questions about the proposed development. The resident was concerned about the north property line near the pond and how the maintenance of the entryway along Elk Creek would be handled. City staff presented at the meeting asked for an additional time to look at the concerns. The agent for the applicant was given an opportunity to speak, but declined to add any additional information unless the commissioners had questions. Following the public hearing, the commission considered the evidence and discussed the zoning request in relation to Bel Aire Code and the golden factors for zoning decisions. The property is currently zoned C1 commercial, and commissioners felt that this property would be better suited for residential use as surrounding property is residential. Having thoroughly viewed the issues, Planning Commission voted by passing a motion 5-0 to recommend the request and to rezone the property from C1 commercial to R5B0 lot line residential. The zoning ordinance now comes before the council for consideration. Again, this will be a recall vote, including the mayor will be required for this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I had one question on this. I was looking at the zoning and plat review that Keith did in our packet. And one of the notes that Keith made on there is that the street width is listed at 25 feet. City code indicates 29 to 35 road width. We spent a lot of time at our last workshop talking about street width and inadequate street width for the parking that's occurring and how that can create some safety issues. I don't understand this comment on this application. I'd like to know what that's about.
So the comment that you're referring to is specifically regarding the preliminary plat, which is what sets out the street width. The zoning matter is a completely separate matter that does not involve the street width. The preliminary plat was delayed due to the property line concern, among a few other issues. So that will be heard next Thursday at the next Planning Commission meeting. So it doesn't quite answer your question, but it kind of does.
Does the zone classification determine what the appropriate street width is?
The different zonings do have, I haven't reviewed this recently, but I believe they have different requirements for street width. I believe the minimum street width is 29 foot. And this is one plat that I have not had a chance to review yet, but I am planning to get to it tomorrow.
But so if we approve this zone change, it won't necessarily permit the street to be less than what would be appropriate for that zone change.
I believe that is correct.
That comes out in the plating, is that correct?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
And it could if the zone change afforded 25-foot street width, but this case, the minimum in any zone is 29. So this would be a variance. So that would have to come before you or be approved with our engineer's comments on the plat. So, right, you approving the zone tonight will not allow the lesser 25-foot streets.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Any other questions or concerns on this action, this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, I can make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to accept an ordinance changing the zoning classification from C1 commercial to R5B 0 lot line residential on certain property located within the corporate city limits of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, Elk Creek 3rd, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by myself and a second by Mr. Smith. I'll short the wrong name down.
And Mr. Mayor, the basis for that motion that you were able to make is that you're authorized to vote on this matter. So you're also allowed to make that motion just because it kind of can be a little bit.
Can be confusing when I can do that, when I can't. But
Exactly.
I think, yeah, thank you. City Clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Jim Benage,
Aye.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Aye.
Mr. John Welch.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0, Mayor.
Thank you. So item F is vacating a portion of 54th Street right-of-way in Sunflower Commerce Park 2nd. So at their April 14th meeting, they had a busy meeting on April 14th, the Planning Commission reviewed the City of Bel Aire Land Bank's request to vacate 54th Street right-of-way as currently platted in Sunflower Commerce Park 2nd Edition. At the meeting, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing where interested parties were given the opportunity to be heard. No interested parties other than the agent for the applicant attended. City engineer Ann Stevens explained that this property was originally platted by the city as a precursor to selling lots. A different party has now purchased the entire property and has a different vision for how they would like this platted. They requested the city vacate the platted right of way so that they can pursue their vision for the property. Following public hearing, the Planning Commission considered the evidence and discussed the proposed vacation. Having thoroughly reviewed the issues, Planning Commission voted by passing a motion 5-0 to recommend that council approve the request to vacate the right of way as presented. So this order of vacation comes before the council. So any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
I make the motion to approve an order vacating a portion of the 54th Street right-of-way in Sunflower Commerce Park 2nd, located within the corporate city limits of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
A motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Welch. Any other discussion?
Just one question.
Certainly.
Vacating a portion of the 54th Street right away, is there, if we look at the plat map up there or that's laid out, are we vacating only a part of the 54th Street road that is shown on the plat, or is it the whole thing? Because I think if we get rid of part of it, it all needs to go away.
You're right. That is a kind of it's always, I guess the preloaded language is always a portion of, and then it goes into the meets and bounds. So we're actually vacating the whole thing here. We just always use that language. And the thing that protects us is the legal description of the part we're vacating actually includes all of it. So that's language we always use. I can look and see whether a portion of it is actually appropriate all the time, because like logically what you're saying is it's all of it this time, but maybe just technically that's the language we use. So
Do we have any 54th Street plotted in Bel Aire other than this section? I'm not aware of any, but just wondering. Okay.
So we could accidentally vacate all of 54th Street if we weren't careful.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
why we say
I
a
get
portion.
that. That's why I asked that question, so. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, this is another roll call vote, so I'll ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Thank
There
you.
she is.
Mayor Jim Benage,
Aye.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Aye.
and Mr. John Welch.
Aye.
And the motion carries 4-0, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so now we'll move on to item G. This is a change order request from Kansas Paving for additional depth of concrete sidewalk. So the sidewalks are needed in new neighborhoods. Developers typically have two approaches to choose from, and each has benefits and drawbacks. So the first approach is to build sidewalks at the beginning of during paving phase. The second is to build the sidewalk as each house is built. In Skyview Edition, the developer chose to install sidewalks during the street paving phase. So this approach assures that there will be a continuous sidewalk throughout the development without any gaps that might otherwise occur, as lots sometimes take several years to fill in. However, the drawback is that sidewalks often crack during home construction and then must be replaced by the developer at an additional cost. The developer for Skyview at Block 49 has asked to have sidewalks modified from 5 inches to 6 inches to protect against construction-related damage. The additional costs associated with the change order will ultimately be financed through the bond, not the bond, and spread as special assessments against the benefiting lots. So staff recommends that council accept change order number 3 for $15,771.60. So I did ask a question about rebar and if we considered rebar, and just curious if we have an answer to that.
We do not typically use rebar in sidewalks. They're typically built as a 4-inch depth, and that is not enough thickness on either side of the rebar to fully support the rebar. At the 6-inch depth with it, which is being requested, it's still generally not utilized for sidewalks.
That's pretty thin for rebar at 6 inches.
That's 6 inches is right on the edge as to where you can use it and where it's not advisable.
Okay.
Does that also apply to the wire mesh I've seen them use?
That is correct. We typically don't use the wire mesh in the sidewalks. Other than the initial construction, sidewalks typically don't see much traffic, vehicular, heavy loads. So that's generally why it's not used.
Will the 6-inch sidewalk sections be more likely to sink down because they're heavier?
No.
There is no discussion. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order request from Kansas Paving in the amount of $15,771.60 for Skyview at Block 49 paving, and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. David. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. So item H is considered a change order request from Kansas Paving for reconciliation of quantities for Rock Spring 3rd Phase 2 of $10,510. So this project has been completed. The final change order is needed and is included in the packet. The reconciliation of the planned quantities include two items that were more materials quantities were installed in the field that was shown on the original bid tab. The majority is from additional curbing and pavement that was installed at the end of the Chris Street, where it will tie into Rock Spring 4th. The cost associated with this change order will ultimately be financed through a bond and spread as special assessments against the benefiting lots. So staff recommends council accept the change order number 2 for $10,510.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Schmidt.
So did they end up doing work that they didn't plan to do, or did they just use more materials to do the work than they thought they were going to do?
And actually, I talked to Ken Lee prior to coming to this meeting and before I had talked to somebody else, but Ken had researched it and it was actually a different problem. In the initial design, they had the intersections, there's 3 intersections in the project, all called out as having a valley gutter. And we typically use valley gutters when there's drainage carried through an intersection. It's a little bit beefier product. After reviewing through the course of the final design and the final review of the project, it was determined that, these are at high points and we really we're not carrying water. So they ended up switching from the valley gutter pavement with an integrated curb to just straight concrete pavement with additional separate curbing. The difference between that valley gutter pavement and the concrete pavement and then the curb and gutter was about $7 a square yard less than the valley gutter that was originally put in. Unfortunately, the change was made pretty late in the project, so they didn't get the quantities changed. So what was installed was actually what was on the plans. When you add up the individual units on the plans, they do add up, but the quantity that was bid was in error because it was so late in the project that change didn't get made on the quantities that were bid. So it's a little bit of a different story, and I apologize for not having the correct information in the report.
So is it a $10,000 refund?
No, it is a $10,000 additional because the valley gutter pavement was taken completely out of the bids. And they did not add in the quantities for the concrete pavement and the curb and gutter.
So that decision was made prior to us approving the original cost of this project?
That change was made prior to the bidding of it. So yes, it was prior to the council accepting the original project.
Okay.
It was just an error that was made during the design of the project, during, the final design and running through. It was caught during when Garver was doing the review of the plans, but it did not get switched over from the planned quantities did not have a final tabulation to verify that it's the same as the bid quantities. So there was a little bit of a difference, but if it was bid out with that valley gutter pavement in there, then we would have been paying an additional $7 a square yard as opposed to what we are actually paying with this concrete pavement.
So you're saying it's not as bad as it could be?
Correct. Correct. That's a short way to say what I'm trying to say. Yes.
So whose error was this? Is it the constructor's error, or was it an engineering
No,
error?
it was an engineering error.
Okay.
It was just the typically you try and go through and you're changing plans and you've got a spreadsheet listing all the quantities per page on the plan sheet. And that spreadsheet just did not get updated. So the bid quantities did not get updated.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David,
make the motion to approve the change order request from Kansas Paving in the amount of $10,510 for Rock Spring 3rd Phase 2 paving, and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
I'll second.
motion by Mr. David and second by Mr. Smith. Any more discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. So Bel Aire codes state that the city manager, the city attorney, and the municipal court judge must be reappointed annually in May. So items I, J, and K are for those reappointments. So I don't think we do them in mass. I think we have to call each one separately, but that's what these items are. So you need a discussion, or if you want to make motions either way.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'll make a motion to accept the mayor's reappointment of Ty Lasher to city manager.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item J.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
Make a motion to accept the mayor's reappointment of Jacqueline Kelly to city attorney.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. David, and a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item K. I'll jump in at once.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
I'll make a motion to accept the mayor's reappointment of Terry Bale to municipal judge.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. David and second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. So item L, this is a resolution of the governing body for advisability of issuing industrial avenue bonds for a healthcare facility, Catholic Care Center. So this is making some improvements. The Catholic Care Center is making some improvements to the facilities in Bel Aire. Since Catholic Care operates as a nonprofit, they do not pay property taxes or sales tax. However, utilizing an IRB does have additional benefits they would like to utilize. That being federal income tax exempt interest rates, which are available to 501c3 organizations, as long as there is local government issuer of municipal bonds. As with all IRBs, the city is not liable for the debt, nor does it appear on the city's financial statements. The city is merely acting as a conduit for the company, and they are responsible for placing the debt, placing the debt, I'm sorry, this was correct. Okay, from the city's perspective, we do charge fees that help offset costs involved from our side. So currently Mr. Lasher is negotiating those fees. I think he may have that answered, or maybe he has something more to report on it.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This is actually the Ascension portion of Catholic Care. It's not through the diocese. And the organizations, businesses have two ways two methods that they could issue IRBs. One is through the city. Another is the state of Kansas has a Kansas Development Finance Authority that's set up that the state can issue IRBs as well. So since this is not coming from locally, it's coming from another state, the Ascension folks contacted Gilmore and Bell to do the bond documents. They're actually working out of one of the staff attorneys up in Kansas City, but Kevin Cowan represents Bel Aire, and they have been talking back and forth. So when Kevin contacted me about this bond, and from what I understand, it's $25 million, and it is for improvements they want to make. I don't think they're building any new facilities. It's updating current facilities, the way I understand it. So they were looking at either going through the Kansas Development Finance Authority or the City of Bel Aire. I suggested that they really should work through us. That's with their campus is in Bel Aire, and we're partners, and it makes sense that we would work together, and of course then the fees stay here in Bel Aire. So the Kansas Development Finance Authority has a fee schedule. I got a copy of that. Their concern, obviously, with any business is where do I get the best deal, and how much does it cost me? So we have a typical rate anywhere from 0.5% to 1% origination fee of bonds. And the Kansas Development Finance Authority is something that's it's your typical state formula that's just all has all kinds of years and amounts and different years and percentages and things like that. So what I did was I looked at what their fee would be over that 10-year IRB process, and you'll see if you pull it up now, there's a fee schedule in there of how that is going to be paid to the City of Bel Aire. What was ironic or interesting is that when I basically took the fees that they charged, put them in the same schedule that's in the the resolution, if the city would have done our 0.5%, it would have totaled the same. So really, the fee's the same. Their one concern was that typically we do it up front, so when they issue the bonds, we get the total amount. Well, the Kansas Development Finance Authority does it over time. You can see how there's a time period, so I just allowed them to pay it over time, just like the Kansas Development Finance Authority would do it. So in the end, we get typically what we would ask for. We charge less on the larger ones. This is a $25 million project, so that's a pretty good sized project for the city. But they're paying it over time, like the Kansas Development Finance Authority would have charged them. So I think in the end, they get exactly what they would have got anywhere else from Bel Aire, but the fees stay in Bel Aire. So I think it's a win-win.
With the same fee schedule
Yes.
over time.
Yes.
Okay. Not a slower schedule. Okay. So any questions or discussion concerning this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith,
I move to approve a resolution of the governing body of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, determining the advisability of issuing healthcare facilities revenue bonds, Catholic Care Center Series 2022, and one or more series to provide funds for the purpose of financing improvements to healthcare and retirement facilities owned and operated by Catholic Care Center, Inc., and authorizing execution of certain related documents and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. David. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item M as in Mary. We had a good slate of 7 citizens step up to be nominated to our city council. Each city council member has reviewed the information submitted and interviewed the candidates as best they could. I personally talked with each candidate. I did a rough sketch scoring of the candidates without sharing that information with the city council members. This was carefully done so that we would not run against open meeting rules. I committed to stating the aggregate results of that scoring. So we have basically 2 candidate groups, 3 scored in the top and 4 in the bottom. But I will say that the separation between the groups is small. I thank each candidate for their efforts in taking time to visit with city council members and myself. It is truly great to have this many citizens willing to step up and serve the city in this capacity, but we can only select one person for this seat. And the top choice was Emily Hamburg. Ms. Hamburg holds 2 bachelor's degrees from Wichita State University, one in accounting and one in marketing, and with a minor in management. She graduated cum laude with both degrees. She has been involved in mentoring with Youth Horizons, volunteering at Catholic Care Center, delivering Meals on Wheels, and worked with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. In 2007, she attended the Wichita Citizen Police Academy. In 2008, she was in the spring class of Wichita Citizen Civic Engagement Academy. In 2010, she attended the class in Dwight D. Eisenhower Excellence in Public Service Series. Ms. Hamburg is current precinct committee woman for Bel Aire 1 precinct, so she's already holds an elected office. Ms. Hamburg is a lifelong resident of Sedgwick County and has lived in Bel Aire since 2010. She and her husband have 4 children, which she homeschools. I'm sure that in itself keeps her pretty busy. She attends the Baptist Church in Valley Center. When I interviewed Ms. Hamburg, she came with a notebook of questions. That's being prepared. Ms. Hamburg stated in her letter of application, the general tone of respect from City Hall for citizens and their property rights, hard-earned money, and liberty would be the envy of any residents in many of other locations. I want to defend and carry on this great environment we have here as we all work together to make Bel Aire one of the safest, cleanest, and friendliest towns in Kansas. Ms. Hamburg's education and civic involvement alone make her an outstanding candidate for our city council. As such, I am nominating Emily Hamburg to fill Dr. Jill Schroeder's vacant seat on the city council and ask for a motion to confirm this nomination.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
A motion to accept the mayor's appointment of Emily Hamburg to the Bel Aire City Council seat vacated by Dr. Joel Schroeder.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations to Ms. Emily Hamburg. We will have a special meeting on May 10th before our regular workshop to have a swearing in for Ms. Hamburg. So item 18, or what, easy for me to read, 13. I do need a 30-minute executive session, and I do have some words here that our city attorney has put together. If somebody would like to call that motion, I will hand that out.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for the sole purpose of discussing the subject of matters of non-elected personnel, contracted employees pursuant to the KSA 75-4319 exception for the same. At some point, the council may invite Ty Lasher and/or Jacqueline Kelly into this session. The meeting will be for a period of 30
minutes, please.
And open meeting will resume in council chambers at 8:39.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Welch and a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. We are in executive session for 30 minutes. back to order. We held an executive session, no binding actions were taken, and we'll move on to the next item, discussion and future issues. So next Tuesday is our regular workshop, May 10th. We scheduled it at 6:30. We will have the special city council meeting to swear in Ms. Hamburg. And so.
What time will that be?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So if you have a preference, we can talk about that. So 6:30 work for everybody? We can
Yeah.
have the special meeting at 6:30 and then move right into the workshop from there.
Yeah, do we have an idea of how long? I think I saw that the workshop agenda was going to be the traffic road overview. for
GIS system.
PEC.
Yes. With PEC,
Do we
is that right?
have any idea how long of an agenda item that is?
Yeah, so that they're estimating 30 to 45 minute presentation and then a time for questions. So
Okay.
probably an hour. Then Ken Lee is going to be here to talk about 53rd. You know, they were
Okay.
kind of looking at the design of that.
How
and
long
some
will that
cost.
take?
You know, 30 minutes maybe, I'm guessing. And then we kind of want to talk about what the proposed street improvement plans that are coming from PEC, because they have several years, kind of over the next 5 years, what they're going to recommend and how much and projects. So we kind of want to talk to you all about that and see what your thoughts are for this year, and you know, what
Yeah, I was
streets
gonna
we
say,
want to
we
tackle.
normally do that in March and we haven't done it yet. So when are we
Exactly.
going to do it for this year? Yeah.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
what we want to talk
Okay.
about. The other issue that they're looking into, because that was Ann and I met with them yesterday. They wanted to show us what they had, see if they were covering the bases, what kind of questions you all might have, what you're interested in seeing. And we talked about, you know, projects, as we told them we had about 1.4 million budgeted. And their concern was, you know, can we get contractors to do this stuff? And we said, yeah, that's a question we have, because we've got the money. We want to do some things. And they were going to call some of their contractors they work with and see how far they are at. And they'll report that at the workshop to let you know that, okay, you know, these contractors doing these things are 2 months out or 3 months out or 6 months, whatever they're going to find out for us. So
Okay.
to help you with that too.
Okay, good. That sounds like that's a pretty full meeting right there. It looks like that's going to be,
Sounds like
2
at least
hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
at least. So, yeah, okay. All right, so 6:30, good to start with a special meeting and then move to workshop from there. Okay,
That sounds good to me.
okay, very good. Then we'll plan on that and we'll have a little discussion about that too. So, next item is 15, adjournment. Do you want to do that?
I move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Smith to adjourn.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Davis. All opposed? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Tried to trick us.
Opposed? Same sign. We are adjourned. See everybody next Tuesday at 6:30.